the government of Israel is doing her job by protecting its citizens, building shelters and developing systems against these rockets. They're doing everything they can to defend the life of our citizens. Okay? In the Gaza side, they are doing everything not to defend their citizens. Okay? By shooting these rockets, by hiding in the hospitals, by shooting the rockets from houses of family. Okay? And you are talking about who have the most casualties is the right one. When the Allies attack Berlin in World War II, and they have much more casualties in the German side, it means that the German side are the right one. What kind of logic is this? I don't understand.
No, may I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure, Jim.
All right, you're talking World War II in 1948. What was Palestine?
The first example.
Right. What was Palestine's? How did they address the Israeli transport from Israelis from Germany to Palestine for those centuries, for those 2 decades before 1948? Was Palestine accepting Jewish transport from Germany to Palestine? Yes, they were. Over 30,000 Israelis came from Germany to Palestine. When 1948 came, what would you call the Nakba? Would you call it a siege by Israel? And how will the Palestinian government protect Palestinians against the Nakba, which was a siege by Israel approved by the United Nations? You are talking about a siege and governments protecting their citizens. Now look at this from Palestine's point of view. Israel attacked. By UN order, they attacked. And Palestine has not been given the opportunity to protect their citizens. How are you going to deal with the Israeli siege in 1948? Speak to me of the Nakba. And explain how your rights of Israel compare to the rights of Palestine.
Okay, I will try to answer if I understand the question, because most of the time...
Was the Nakba a siege? That's the question. Was the Nakba a siege?
You need to start with the question, what is Nakba? This is the first question.
Well, yes, treat the question that way. Was Nakba a siege by Israel against Palestine?
But what so-called Nakba is happened in 1948. In 1948, we just established the state of Israel. Okay, and after
how was the state of Israel formed? Did they attack Palestine on UN authorization as a result to the Holocaust?
What are you talking about? You're saying that Israel attacked Palestine? You didn't attack Palestine because there was no Palestinian state here. First of all,
700. This is documented. 700,000 Palestinians were pushed out of their homes in May of 1948 by Israel in the formation of the Israeli state.
Okay, so I suggest you to go and learn more history, and you will find out that after we established the state of Israel, all the Arab neighbors attacked the young state of Israel. We didn't have an army. We just have volunteers. We have Air Force.
We did have an army. A friend of mine lost their grandfather, an Israeli bullet. I said a friend of mine lost his grandfather to an Israeli bullet. They did have an army. The Nakba was a military siege.
This bullet probably came from my grandfather. That came from Auschwitz to here, the Jewish state. And after we established the Jewish state, all the Arab neighbors attacked the Jewish state. Only volunteers. We have an Air Force. Have only 4 airplanes.
Okay? Did the Arab states
and the Arab I will answer everything. Don't worry.
Okay.
The Arab League announced to the Arabs living in Israel to go out, let us finish the Jews, and then you can go back to your houses. We didn't push anybody out of this country. They get a direct order from the Arab League. But you're missing the point. You're missing the point. Where was the UN when, I don't know, 5 or 6 Arab armies attacked one few days country, few days old country?
We are going to talk here May of 1948. May of 1948, you are using the word siege. You are saying that the Palestinian, no, this is a siege of Israel on Palestine. It has been going on since May of 1948. Did the Arabs attack the country of Israel before May of 1948? How was the Arab League involved in the Holocaust?
You didn't say the Arab League involved in the Holocaust.
They were not. But Israel attacked the Arab League. They did not attack Germany. They attacked the Arab League.
We attacked the Arab League? You're saying that Israel, the Arab League?
Did the Arab League authorize the country of Israel? Who authorized the country of Israel?
The UN.
The UN. So the UN put a siege on the Arab League. Did you not expect the Arab League to respond? Was this not all-out war, the United Nations against the Arab League?
I'm sorry, Rick, I don't understand you. What siege are you talking about?
The Nakba of May of 1948, when the UN authorized the Israeli siege against the Arab League and the country of Palestine, which was not incorporated into a nation. We can accept that. Apparently it was not incorporated into a nation. Israel could go in and push people out of houses which they had bought and their agricultural lands which they were pursuing. Now, who did the United Nations attack? Are you telling me this was unoccupied lands?
Do you mind if I jump in and answer that?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. What are you talking
Who was living in the country that Israel now occupies? Who was living there before the Nakba was authorized by the UN? Was anyone living in that region?
Israel today?
Where Israel is today, was anyone living in that region, whether or not they were an incorporated nation, was anyone living in houses and owning that land before Israel was authorized to siege against the Arab League?
Can I jump in and comment on this?
Lucas, I'd be happy to listen to you.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that the point you're trying to make, Rick, is, I mean, it wasn't so much a siege as it was, as Benny Morris describes, a campaign of ethnic cleansing. And the UN resolution proposed in November, passed in November of 1947, UN Resolution 181, authorized the creation of a Jewish state and a Palestinian state, although almost the majority of the 400,000 Palestinians would be living in the Jewish state, and there would be a significant number of Jews in the Palestinian state. It was not going to be a Jewish state defined according to ethno-religious criteria as Israel exists today. What proceeded afterwards, and it was a campaign of ethnic cleansing. Ilan Pape shows this in his book, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. Plan Dalit, also Benny Morris. 300,000 Palestinians were expelled before the foundation of the State of Israel, before the Arab states intervened, as you said. So the ethnic cleansing was not a response to the intervention of Arab states, and because the British were still there, they were backing the Zionist project. And I think that the other point being is that it was not the grand myth the military myth is that Israel was, encircled and, was on the verge of being defeated by Arab armies, but in fact, Israel had 80,000 troops. The Haganah, the labor militia, labor army that became the IDF, had 80,000 troops, supplied with Czech weapons. The Arab League forces had about 60,000 at most. And Benny Morris also finds that the radio signals, the supposed radio signals issued by the Arab League to force Palestinians, to encourage them to flee so that Jews could be driven to the sea, that was a fabrication. That never happened. That certainly there were various, some did encourage them to flee, but but in general, those radio signals were a fabrication. There never was. In fact, Benny Morris and Ilan Pappé find the opposite. In fact, the message was for them to stay put where they were. And the result, as you put it, Rick, was 750,000 were expelled. And, I mean, that is the legacy of Nakba. And subsequently, the issue was that Israel never allowed them to choose to exercise their right to return or compensation under UN Resolution 194, which was the condition of Israel's admittance into the UN. Israel had to accept this resolution in order to be admitted, and it never did. It never honored its terms of resolution to allow the return of the refugees or to grant them reparations. And why? Because the return of the refugees would threaten the demographic majority that a Jewish state necessitates. And that was historically the problem. And for that reason, the original sin is 1948. And until 1948 is resolved, there will never be justice and peace.
Lucas?
Okay, I just wanna
may I speak to Lucas?
Correct you all about the...
May I speak to Lucas a moment? You mentioned England working with the Zionists, which is probably true. They were working at controlling a very difficult situation. In the 18th Zionist Congress in 1932, the Zionists declared war against Hitler's empire in Germany. They also authorized the Palestinian passport, where Jews were able to get a passport to transfer their houses and belongings. They could sell it in Germany, transport that over to Palestine, and over 30,000 Zionists from 1932 until through the Holocaust, up until 1948, Palestine accepted over 30,000 Zionists. And this was a relatively peaceful transfer where the Palestinians were benefiting from the Zionists coming in, etc. There was no siege going on. The Zionists had a desire, they had a stated desire throughout the 1900s that they wanted to create a political majority within the region of Palestine. They were looking to create the Zionist state. Palestine was even aware of this. However, after the Holocaust, the UN stepped in, took away the control that England was putting on the situation, and the transfer of Jews into this area became overwhelming. And if history serves, Zionists were actually doing terrorist activities against England for the controls that England was putting on to the transfer of Jews into this area. If it happened too quickly, it would overwhelm the area with militarism. Everyone knew this, but at the end of 1948, it was not Germany that was punished nearly so bad as what Palestine was, and there was a military transfer of Jews, which moved in, as you said, and dislodged over 700 Palestinians. Now, Noam, I would like to know why this is not a siege and why this could not be done peacefully. Palestine was accepting the Jews for 2 decades since the Jews had declared war on Germany at the 18th Zionist Congress.
What are you talking about? Telling me the Jews declared war on Germany? Are you serious?
Yes, at the 18th Zionist
Congress. Can I even make a discussion with you? I'm asking you seriously. Can I even make
you have to distinguish between Jews and Zionists. I don't know what. Yeah.
Look back.
Your motive, I think the motive is not your care for the Palestinians. Your motive is more the hate of the other side.
Absolutely. No, I'm actually a Bible blogger, and I blog through the Old Testament. I read the Tanakh, and I blog on the Tanakh every day. There is no hatred of Jews here whatsoever. I am asking you to be honest about siege. You're talking about the siege and feeling. Go ahead.
Okay, let me throw before some facts. Okay, about the how many troops there was for Israel and for the Arab world. Okay, in 1948. Okay, Israel have 30,000 soldiers. And Egypt sent in the beginning 10,000. After the war, they sent 20,000. Iraq sent 5,000. Syria sent 5,000. Jordan sent 13,000 soldiers. Lebanon sent 1,000 soldiers. Saudi Arabia sent 3,000 soldiers. In total, they have 64,000 soldiers against 30,000 soldiers, volunteers of Israel. Okay? Talking about people who just came from the Holocaust and stuff like this. In 1947, September 1947, the British mandate is decided to finish the British mandate in Israel and give the responsibility of solution to the UN. Okay? The UN have a suggestion to find what is left from Israel, from Palestine, the areas called Palestine, that includes Jordan. So we're talking now about the territory between the river and the sea, and divided them between the Jews and the Arabs, the Hebrews. And after the suggestion, the Arab League decided to reject this suggestion, and the Jews accept UN suggestion. And then the world they declare war on Israel. We declare or the establishment of the state of Israel, and the Arab League declare war on Israel. So I don't understand what siege are you talking about?
Okay, your siege. You're speaking of the mid-1940s, late 1940s, 1947, 1948. I would like to bring you back to Prague in 1933 at the 18th Zionist Congress. This is when the 18th Zionist Congress declared war on Hitler's regime in Germany because of some of the things that were coming down during that period of time between these two clashings of two, shall we call them, fascist states. The Jews, the Zionists, their primary mission was to create, and is to create, a Jewish state. Is that correct? Is this the aim of Zionism, to create a Jewish state? To bring back God's chosen people, the nation of Israel?
I don't like when people use these terms. Me as a Jew and as an Israeli, I never heard my parents telling me that we are the chosen people. So stop making these comparisons. I don't like it at all. Okay.
Well, this is what Zionism. This is what Zionism is to stop. This is what Zionism has been since its inception at the late 19th.
You asking me, or you are telling me?
Well, if you study Zionism, when Zionism as a...
I'm a Zionist, so I have to study Zionism.
Okay.
Can I come in? I was asking something for
the 1890s. In 1933, you have the 18th Zionist Congress. They declared war on Hitler. What did they expect to happen?
I have to jump in here. I have to go. May I make some final comments before I leave? I don't know anything about that particular. I don't understand how a Zionist conference could ever have declared war on Hitler when, at that time, the official policy of the Zionist movement actually was seeking Germany as a potential collaborator, as a patron, imperial patron in its colonizing project at that time. In fact, this is little known, but elements of the Zionist movement, especially the revisionist right wing, collaborated with Mussolini's Italy, looking for support for the colonization project from that end as well. I mean, and Nazi Germany, and the support was also solicited, and the idea was that it could be negotiated that Jews could, German Jews could be encouraged or be allowed to flee Nazi Germany and go to Palestine. Essentially, their hands was the message. And in fact, Eichmann went to Jerusalem in 1935, which was his first time in Jerusalem. In fact, that Eichmann, when he was rendered to Jerusalem, and after Hannah Arendt wrote her famous book Eichmann in Jerusalem, The Trial of Eichmann, that was his second time in Jerusalem because he was originally solicited there, invited there, and by Zionist leaders in order to talk about a possible collaboration and the bringing of the deportation of German Jews to what would become a Jewish state, or what they wanted to create as a Jewish state. And the last point I just wanted to respond to is that someone wrote here that what happened to the 20% of Palestinians that currently live in Israel after the Nakba. How is that consistent with the narrative of the Nakba? And that's completely consistent because that was the 20% of, that was not expelled, that effectively evaded expulsion. And this is what Benny Morris, in fact, identifies, and what Ben Gurion, the supreme leader, or the who becomes the prime minister of first prime minister of Israel, he acknowledged as the critical error that they failed to expel this minority, and as a result has a status in Israel, and has openly recognized as a demographic threat, and has a birthright that's double, and in some cases for the Bedouins quadruple that of Israeli Jews, and for that reason it's openly talked about that they constitute a demographic threat, that their birthrates must be reduced, and which obviously sounds quite racist and genocidal when you think about it. But the point, and after 1948, this population was put under Israeli military occupation until 1967, when they were granted formal citizenship. Although it's a much longer discussion about many would argue, and I would agree, that this is a formal citizenship only, it's second-class citizenship fundamentally, and that apartheid structures do not stop at the Green Line, but they extend within Israel. Anyway, I do have to go. It's been a pleasure talking to you, gentlemen, and I wish you all the best. Have a good afternoon.
Nice talking to you, too.
It was a pleasure to talk with you, Lucas. Next time when you come to Israel, give me a phone call. I'll be happy to meet you.
I don't think I'm allowed to go back for another 10 years, but in 10 years...
After what you did in Jerusalem, I think so.
After what they did to me in Jerusalem, but thank you.
They were very gentle with you.
Oh yeah, of course they were gentle. If I were Palestinian, I probably would have been detained for a month. Absolutely, because Palestinians face systematic, for throwing a stone, or they say they supposedly throwing a stone, a child can face up to a month in administrative detention or more, often 4 months to 6 months without trial, and it's a very problematic system. So I completely recognize my white Jewish privilege that had I been Palestinian, I really would have gotten my ass kicked, and I really probably would have been in prison for a while, and I got off very easy. But I don't take back what I said.
I'm sorry. Have a nice day.
Do you know Palestinians there, Lucas?
I didn't. You told me to answer that question very quickly. I actually do know many Palestinians here. It's the largest Palestinian diaspora in the world. I'm good friends with a number of them. There's actually a Palestinian soccer team here. It's the only Palestinian soccer team in the world. I actually been to a few of the games. But the Palestinians they're very warm people here. Most of them, you have to understand that Middle Eastern politics is very foreign to South America. It's on the other side of the world, and for most people, it's just not that much of an issue. But most people obviously are in solidarity with the Palestinian struggle for self-determination and liberation. And there is actually a movement for boycott, divestment, and sanctions against the state of Israel, which, if you haven't heard, it basically was a call put out in 2005 by the over 200 Palestinian civil society organizations calling on Israel, calling for a campaign of boycott, divestment, and sanctions modeled on South Africa until Israel meets the 3 conditions of ending its military occupation, recognizing the Palestinian right of return, and granting equal rights to Palestinian citizens living within Israel. And I mean that's a very inspiring movement. I
actually talked to some of them in my city, in Stockholm, in Sweden, just the other week.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look into. It's one of the preeminent nonviolent strategies for putting pressure on Israel to comply to recognize Palestinian rights.
Yeah, but I objected.
Go ahead.
I think it yes, but sure.
Go ahead. I'm about to go, but go ahead. Did you want to say something, Noam, or?
No, I think Jimmy is trying to tell you something.
I just want to say that I don't support BDS. I protest BDS, but I talk to them just to hear what they had to say, and I agree with the atrocities that Israel do. That I agree with the BDS look on the atrocities that Israel does, but I don't agree with BDS. You can.
Well, I mean, everyone's you're entitled to your opinion, and like the idea is that we should have a massive open space, all types of strategies and forms of resistance, and the idea is that we shouldn't close off space. We shouldn't suppress freedom of speech, which they're doing right now in the University of California by basically using Title VI or U.S. law to brand essentially any criticism of Israeli occupation, Israeli apartheid, ethnic cleansing, etc., to essentially criminalize this speech as anti-Semitism. And you're entitled to oppose a particular tactic or strategy, and that's fine. However, to attempt to silence free speech by, I would say, using the slander, that's unacceptable. And I think that we need to be vigilant. We need to be as vigilant about that as we are vigilant about anti-Semitism. Because anti-Semitism is real, and it's in the movement, and we need to completely check that and oppose it and eliminate it. And that's the truth as well.
But Lucas. That's what the people in the audience there in California did. They tried to silence an Israeli ambassador from speaking. So that's not fair, I think.
It was an act of protest. It was an act of protest because the principle was that Michael Oren, who represents the Israeli state, is not a representative of the Israeli state. He's a person, but in his capacity as representative of the Israeli state, a state which is basically with U.S. tax dollars has committed human rights abuses, immense human rights abuses, that speech should not be, that propaganda should not be recognized on campuses. And obviously you can debate, but the point is giving these people, jail sentences, not jail sentences, but fines and citations for their protest, their act of protest. That is a suppression of freedom of speech. So there's a lot of ethical issues here, but we have to look at the structure, who maintains the structure, who has power and who doesn't have power, and we can never pretend that the powerful are equal to those who are dominated and those who are resisting domination. And that's what our ethical imperative commands us to really oppose domination and always be in solidarity with the press.
Lucas.
On that note, I think I'm gonna leave it there.
Well, I'm going to
have a good day.
Tell you I applaud your voice and appreciate what you're saying. I do not hear you picking sides, but I do hear you saying that Palestine needs help allowing their voice to be heard. I think Israel, especially in America, has a very loud voice. And you sound very...
I actually do take a side. I take the side of the oppressed. I think it's critical. There's no neutrality in questions of true injustice. That you can't be neutral on being trained, as Howard Zinn says. I am in solidarity with Palestinians insofar as they struggle for peace, justice, and equality, for the recognition of the three fundamental rights: the end of occupation, equality within Israel, the right of return. I'm completely in solidarity with them. I do not in any way endorse, of course, acts of terrorism, in any way, in any form, and that has to be condemned. However, I'm in solidarity with the oppressed, and I'm in solidarity, obviously, with my Israeli brothers and sisters. Boycott from within. The Women's Coalition for Peace, New Profile, all these organizations that are conducting heroic work, B'Tselem, for peace and justice within Israeli society and attempting to really break down walls and barriers. I'm also a shout out to them. Have a good night, gentlemen.
I appreciate your voice.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And could I ask you then, because you're pretty young, I think, have you talked to Palestinians within Israel and asked them about their views on solving this conflict?
Yeah, sure. The thing is that not every Arab Israeli, when I said Arab Israeli, it's Arab, it can be Muslim or Christian, live inside of Israel, that is a citizen of Israel, doesn't consider himself Palestinian. Not every Arab Israeli is considering himself Palestinian. Some of them consider themselves an Israeli, an Arab Israeli. Okay, so it's a thing that you need to know. You have all kinds of Arabs inside of Israel. You have the Bedouin that are living in the Negev, it's in the south area of Israel. You have Falahim living in the north. You have the Druzim. That I bet you didn't hear about the Druzim.
I think I have, but I don't know so much about them. They are in the north, I think, in Lebanon and stuff.
Yeah, they are also in Israel. We call the Druze. And you didn't hear about them because they are completely loyal to Israel. The leadership of the Druze in the beginning of Israel, I don't know, in the late 50s, go to the government and said, we want to join the army like every Israeli joins the army at the age of 18. So they are very, very loyal to the state. Of course, the citizens, they have equal rights. Every citizen of Israel has equal rights. Don't be confused from all the stuff they are saying. I invite you to come over here and you'll see by yourself, by law, everybody is equal. The Bedouin, I come from the Negev. My hometown is near the Dead Sea. Do you know about the Dead Sea?
Can you say which one? Which place?
The Dead Sea.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So my hometown is next to the Dead Sea. And in this area, you have a lot of Bedouin, okay? Also living in my city, living in next cities, Jews and Bedouin together. It's normal, everything is okay. And I walk with them after I walk in the hotels in the Dead Sea. And we talk a lot. So what happened in the Bedouin community is that a lot of them join the army. They are not considering themselves Palestinians at all. They are Bedouins. Most of them join the army. Now we have something new over there. That the Islamic movement is going inside of the Bedouin cities. Try to make trouble for the people, for the Bedouins that join